What separates the good marketers from the great marketers in the automotive aftermarket is their ability to successfully launch new products into the marketplace. Every brand has to create and release new products in order to stay alive, but when most marketers release new products, nobody listens or their efforts are so scattered, it's obvious that they fumbled their way through launching the product. Now, I consider launching products to be a linchpin activity, meaning that doing this right is so critical it could make or break your entire business. And for marketing managers, doing this right is what will lead to more growth, responsibility, and respect within your organization. Now, in this video series, I'm going to share with you a proven framework for launching products in the automotive aftermarket. If you implement this framework, you'll see new product adoption increase, all while eliminating the frustration and chaos that typically surrounds product launches for marketers. So this first video will provide an overview of the different types of product launches and the characteristics that separate the great from the good. And then in the remaining two videos in this series, we'll walk through the 4 phases of product releases that actually work. Now, when we're talking about launching products in the automotive aftermarket, it usually means one of these 3 things. First is a brand launch, second a line launch, or third an application launch. So let's talk through those really quickly. First is the brand launch. For some of you, when you're launching a new product, it's really your first product and it essentially serves as the launch of your brand. Think about it. In many cases, if you aren't selling a product today, you don't have a brand yet. So when you release your first product, when you bring it to market, you're actually also bringing the brand to market. We recently had an aftermarket client who had been in business for decades, but they didn't sell into the automotive aftermarket. In fact, they manufactured and sold pool lifts. You know how every public pool, whether it's a hotel or a water park, there's usually a handicap accessible pool lift, chair lift that helps people get in and out of the water. And this client main sold those things, one of the original brands. And he sold off that business and decided to try some new markets using similar technology. And he developed a powered engine hoist, an automotive tool. The engine crane or the cherry picker he used to pull an engine out. And he hired us to help him bring this product to market. But he didn't have a brand yet. And so we had to create the brand and launch the brand with this product. And releasing the product and launching the brand became a synonymous process. Letting the world know about the product was also letting the world know about this new brand. And for some of you, that is what your product launch will look like. You've invented this new product, you make this new accessory, and now you're ready to bring it to market and start selling. You're not just launching a new product, you're launching a new brand. Now, the second type of product release is a line release or a product line release. And this type of product release represents the release of a new type of product or a product with new features and benefits that you currently do not offer. For most non-automotive brands, a product line launch is the extent of their product launch. When Apple released their first iPad, they introduced a new product line. They had laptops, they had iPods, they had iPhones, but they didn't have a device in the tablet space. So the introduction of the iPad was a new product line. Now, to help you understand the difference, let's talk about the third type of launch. And the third type of launch is the application launch. And this is where the aftermarket differs from most other industries. We don't just make product lines. You can't go to the store and buy a generic WeatherTech laser fit floor liner. You can't go to AutoZone and just buy a generic engineer filter off the shelf and be fine. And in the aftermarket, we make individual applications of a particular product line that can be fit or applied to a specific vehicle. And you all know this, and this is why product releases are so important in the automotive aftermarket. It's because we are releasing new products all of the time. We may not be releasing new brands all the time or new product lines all that often, but we're designing products for specific fitment on specific vehicles all of the time. And not every vehicle becomes available at the exact same time for aftermarket brands to design new products for, and not every new year, submodel, or trim of a vehicle requires your products to be redesigned or modified every year. And so, we are releasing new SKUs, new part numbers, new applications all of the time. It's exhausting. Some manufacturers have so many new application releases that they just do a monthly release to cover the 5 to 10 new applications of a particular product line that have been released. Now, regardless of whether you're launching a brand, a product line, or an application, the product launch process and framework we're going to show you will work for you. But before we get into the framework, let's talk about some of the conflict you'll likely face when launching a new product. This video series is really designed for brand builders, those marketing and salespeople, maybe an owner who you're responsible for promoting and selling new products. We have many counterparts in our organizations who are also responsible for bringing new products to market. They're the engineers or the product designers, supply chain, manufacturing, and more. Some companies call this their AP/QP team, some will call it PD or product development, but it's the team who's responsible for actually designing and manufacturing the product so that it can later be sold. Product development teams typically work in a waterfall fashion, meaning they start at the beginning and they make their way through to completion. The engineer will start with feasibility and design and prototypes, and then once they have an approved part, procurement will start finding sources, fill of the supply chain, manufacturing and engineering will figure out how they're going to build it. They'll put together processes, and then they'll conduct trial builds, quality processes, and all that. And finally, we'll have a product that's ready to go on the shelf, and the business is equipped to replenish that supply. So they start at the beginning and work through all of the tasks until they get to the end. The plan cascades or waterfalls. One task leads to another, which leads to another. And then once the final task is completed, the project is complete. And you'll oftentimes see them visualized in a Gantt chart, which are fine. They're nice to look at. They're never accurate, but they're nice to look at. In contrast, us brand builders, us marketers and salespeople, we typically work the opposite direction. We establish a launch date, a release date, and then we work backwards. So if we want to launch this product on June 1st, we need to have our press release and email and landing page, a couple of days before that. But in order to have that ready, we need photography and video and messaging a few days before that. In order to have those assets ready, we need to have the production or prototype product and vehicles to shoot photos and videos of, and so on and so forth. And we work against a fixed deadline, and then we work backwards. So you can begin to see how conflict can arise. Product development working start to finish, marketing working finish to start, one party working forward and another working backwards. And in my experience, the conflict usually happens when product development uses their Gantt chart to give a product ready date, or the date the product will be ready to begin shipping, and then they don't hit that date. They're early, or in most cases they're late, or just it goes back and forth, keeps changing. And the reason this really causes conflict is because, as we'll talk about in our next two videos, when releasing products, you want to follow a meticulously planned timeline for releasing information to your partners and to the public, all while making sure you don't have products sitting on the shelf, collecting dust while the marketing team builds everything they need to properly launch it, and making sure you're not releasing information too early that your customers forget about it by the time they can actually order it. Which, by the way, is a plague in our industry. How many times you've seen a product coming soon, and then a year later it's still not ready. If these two realities, products sitting on the shelf collecting dust and information too early, are on opposite sides of a spectrum, how do we land as close to the middle as possible, and how do we get there? And it starts with flexibility. It's called being flexible with your counterparts in the organization who are developing the new products. It takes a lot of effort to make something new. To design a product that not only fits but lasts and also makes your business money in the process, it's difficult. So be flexible, engage with the product development process, and be prepared for things to shift. If you just tell yourself from the onset, if you just use it to frame your thinking, hey, creating new things is tough. Things will change and shift. I need to be flexible. If you just tell yourself that up front, you'll be dramatically less surprised when it happens because you'll be expecting it, which means less frustration, less stress, less complaining, and a better experience for everyone involved. So what exactly do you need to do to launch a product in the marketplace so that your customers will actually notice and want to buy it? We'll get to that in our next video, where we'll uncover the 4 stages, the 4 phases to successful product launches in the automotive aftermarket.